For today's mission moment, I've actually invited Zuri Stone. I originally invited her out weeks ago, and then she actually provided, I was very appreciative to have her join us in yesterday's plenary. Zuri, are you with us today?
Yes. Let me know that you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear. If everyone can hear, put a Y into the chat box. Thank you so much. It looks like they can all hear you. Thank you for joining us again.
Of course. Thank you for having me. When I got this invitation to have this conversation about the mission moment, I was automatically drawn to the conversation that we have a lot here at YouthBuild Philly. And I touched on it a little bit yesterday, but it's really about students being able to see themselves in their educational experience. And I wanted to kind of take that point a little bit deeper and talk about how that impacts us here at YouthBuild Philly, especially because Philadelphia is a large city. We are one of the places that you see highlighted in sports and in TV. So when we think about Philadelphia, there's a lot of rich culture that is specific to Philadelphia. One example of that is when Merriam-Webster, there was a tweet about how they have finally added John to the dictionary. And if you know anything about Philadelphia, you know that John is a word for us in our culture here. And though it's probably not the most proper English, students deserve to have their language, their vernacular respected. And I'm going to give us a couple quotes and a couple things that really help drive home these points. So when you think about that concept, a quote that I've heard is, students deserve educational and developmental environments that respect and appreciate the from which they come. And a couple years in Philadelphia, one way that we saw that down at the school district, some students have recognized a lot of their teachers didn't understand their slang, didn't know their vernacular. And like I said yesterday, for some of our students, that led to disciplinary actions that kind of put them on a path that wasn't the successful path. And the educational responsibility and the responsibility that we all have as educators is to make sure that we're keeping students from being railroaded, keeping students from those types of situations. And so what these students did was they took it upon themselves and they put together a first-year teacher handbook. If you look at the statistics for Pennsylvania, for Philadelphia, we Black and brown students make up probably 50 to 75%, especially in Philadelphia. Black and brown students are closer to 70% of the student population. But in Philadelphia, teachers, Black and brown teachers are only 14%. And so the likelihood of a student being in a class, someone that shares their same race, ethnicity, cultural upbringing is lower for us. But when these students put together this handbook, they had an opportunity to let staff know that this is what it means to be from Philadelphia. And you're going to see this in your classroom, and this can help you respect the students that you're going to work with. And if we can meet in the middle and build that relationship, you know a little bit more about us, we know a little bit more about you. Another quote that's really important to me is, like a grammar, a system of norms specifies what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in society or in a group. And when we think about educational environments, oftentimes staff members are the ones that draw the line on what's acceptable. We keep the culture. And if we don't respect our students' cultures, oftentimes the students will find themselves in consequences unknowingly. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind. It's a small story. If anybody remembers the quote, the bomb used to be a really popular quote back in the day. And imagine a Philadelphia student coming into the classroom, working on a math test, doing really well on that math test, and then having some extra time to doodle and turning that paper over and drawing a bomb on the back of that paper. And in his mind, he's expressing that he feels like he just killed this test. He just did the best he could possibly do. This whole test about to blow up because I know I put my best foot forward. But when his teacher receives that test, she thinks it's a threat. She doesn't understand that language. She doesn't understand his excitement and the track that he is then put into. Think about all of the meetings his mom has to come to sort out this. Think about her appreciation for his slang, the things that he uses at home, and not even being able to understand that the teacher doesn't understand what he's saying. So now we have a student in the city of Philadelphia going through a bunch of different disciplinary meetings, potentially being expelled or placed in special classes or in alternative schools, all because of his excitement for math. Think of the memory that's when he enters a math classroom the next time. All of those are really important. And so as we kind of charge ourselves as educators, Chris Emden, if you haven't done any research on him or haven't heard any of his talks, I encourage you to look up Chris Emden. Something that he said, an example from his own life, but something that stood out to me, another quote is, "The rules of engagement were so complex and unfamiliar that I would inhibit myself from partaking and showcasing my knowledge." We never want to provide an environment where students can't understand the culture and therefore retreat and don't show us what they do have and what they do bring to the table. The last quote that I'll leave you with, and I'm giving you a bunch of them just so that whichever one hits home for you, you get to take it with you into today's conference workshops. This one is, "Change happens at the speed of trust." And when I say trust, I mean truth, respect, understanding, and transparency. It's really important that our students, through those cultural exchanges, through that community building, that they build trust with us. And I think that we should take that responsibility as educators to go into all of our programs every day that we're going to engage with students, and take responsibility to make sure that our students can trust us and that we provide them with the safest, most familiar environment so that they can show us exactly who they are and become the best version of themselves. I appreciate you guys. I hope some of those quotes that I'm sharing out about the Philadelphia culture lands well for the cultures that you guys are doing your program work in. And I look forward to being with everybody today.